Two guys in bespoke suits, green sports center style graphics, and somehow 130,000 people watching live. The Technology Business Programming Network, better known as TBPN, started with two guys printing X posts and reading them out loud.
It's on the front page of the business section.
Which every self-respecting person reads daily.
Well, you know.
A year later, they struck a deal to broadcast from the New York Stock Exchange. A few months after that, they were acquired by OpenAI. How did they get here? This is FC Explains. Like any time two men meet, the chance of a podcast being started rises exponentially. And that's exactly what happened in 2024. The first thing you need to know about TBPN is that its hosts, Coogan and Jordi Hayes, aren't journalists. They're founders, a product of Silicon Valley. Coogan co-founded health food company Soylent and a nicotine pouch brand called Lucy. Hayes was the founder of a startup funding tool called Party Round. Both had a little media experience, but not much. Coogan had been building a documentary-style YouTube channel that he grew to nearly 500,000 subscribers prior to TBPN. And Hayes, in college, had started a YouTube ad network. Hayes and Coogan ran in similar circles for years, and both lived in Los Angeles. But they didn't meet until 2023, when they were introduced by a mutual friend. Hayes and Coogan launched TBPN, though it was called Technology Brothers,
the most profitable podcast in the world.
It started as just the two of them reading tweets, but it would grow into one of the most influential business shows in the world. So, what does the show actually look like? There are hallmarks of cable news like you'd see on CNBC, but this show's tone is distinct from that type of legacy media. It's polished, it's intentional, and it's live. Their show is available on X, YouTube, and TBPN.com, and draws more than 130,000 simultaneous viewers for the broadcast, which airs 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. Add in viewers watching highlight clips and listening to the podcast after broadcast, and we're talking about an audience of millions. The show's strategy for audience growth is simple: leverage the algorithms. Each episode, Hayes and Coogan may cover 50 to 100 different topics rapid fire, everything from a startup closing a funding round to Silicon Valley gossip and hiring drama at the top AI firms. They are accompanied by a revolving cast of venture investors, startup founders, and the occasional single-name elite like Zuck. There are tons of podcasts devoted to business and technology, but none mine Silicon Valley's digital spaces with as much speed and attention. I mentioned earlier that TBPN's first episodes were largely driven by Hayes and Coogan just printing out X posts and reading them aloud. That wasn't just an early podcast grasping for content, it was a strategy. They knew that the person behind a tweet read on the show would clip and share that moment, and in the process, expand TBPN's reach. The show feels like a mix of Squawk Box, The Town if it were about Silicon Valley, and like just a dash of Page Six. There was a moment that really captures what makes this show stand out from this past July. Suhail Doshi, a prominent Bay Area founder, made a post on X accusing a software engineer of working multiple jobs at once, secretly collecting paychecks from multiple companies, preying on them. The post went viral. Coogan and Hayes tracked the engineer down and got him on the show.
So welcome to the stream, Soham. Good to meet you. How are you doing?
There he is.
Welcome
the
to
man
the
himself.
show.
During that conversation, he admitted to working for multiple companies at the same time. It was all streamed live and just was like a little bit like Real Housewives. All of this has led to more than just a massive fan base. It's translating into profits. This past September, Dylan Abrascato joined TBPN as president. One of his first priorities was maximizing the show's ad sales. By January 2026, just a few months after starting, he'd sold out TBPN's ad stock for the entire year. This was an incredibly impressive feat, and one of the reasons TBPN landed on this year's Most Innovative Companies list. But then, this happened.
This is from the OpenAI blog. OpenAI acquires TBPN, accelerating the global conversation about AI. This is not an April Fool's joke. April Fool's was yesterday. We didn't do anything for April Fool's Day.
What does this mean for the show? Both parties claim that TBPN will maintain editorial independence. In theory, the show will continue with freedom to book the guests they want, talk about the topics they find interesting, and even criticize their owners when they see fit. But the conflict of interest is tough to ignore, especially when TBPN will be part of OpenAI's strategy department, reporting to Chief Global Affairs Officer Chris Lehan. It's also important to remember the first thing I told you in this video. Hayes and Coogan are not journalists. They are Silicon Valley insiders who just got deeper inside Silicon Valley.